Hey, you're not pro tem anymore. Let her do your thing.
All right, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. We are here at 7 o'clock for the Royal Oak Civic Foundation members annual meeting. We'll call this meeting to order. This will be a roll call vote. So we'll start with Commissioner Macy.
Here? Yes.
Charlotte Douglas. Mayor Pro Tem Hunt.
Drain Bola.
Amanda Herzog. Rebecca Chisholm.
All right. And now we have to approve the agenda. Does anyone want to make a motion?
You know, I don't know that that was just widely distributed. You want to maybe read the contents of the agenda?
Absolutely. We have, after the approval of the agenda, we have the presentation of the Royal Oak Civic Foundation Annual Report that will be given by Thomas McGinnon, the chairperson of the Royal Oak Civic Foundation, followed by the approval of the recommended slate of trustee candidates, and then public comment.
Move to approve.
There's a motion by Commissioner Colo. Second by Commissioner Chisholm. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? All right, we have an agenda. So now we have the presentation of the annual report by Mr. McGinnon. Welcome.
Thank you very much. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for hosting this annual meeting of the member for the Royal Oak Civic Foundation. An extraordinary year that included our first major grant from a foundation, our first public fundraising event, and infrastructure updates that moved us quickly from our infancy to adulthood. It was a great year. I'm Tom McGannon from the Royal Oak Civic Foundation. I'm here with my fellow trustee, Char Douglas, who's in her commission perspective tonight, and with two soon-to-be appointees, David Guest and Julie Lyons-Bricker. Will be asking for their confirmation at the end of today's meeting. First slide, we're on. All right. Since incorporating in 2018, the foundation has stayed true to its roots, serving as the fiduciary for donor-designated contributions to Royal Oak programs, including Parks and Recreation, the Animal Shelter, the Orson Star House, Senior Citizens, the Library, Public Safety, and the Commission for the Arts. Over the years, that giving has totaled about $250,000 since 2018. Next slide, please. For the past 2 years, we contributed matching funds to the Shop with a Hero event. This collaboration with our Royal Oak Meyer store on Coolidge provides thousands of dollars for Royal Oak kids in need to shop during the holidays for their families, accompanied by Royal Oak's first responders and military veterans. Photos from last year's event here, we served about 54 families, helping these kids shop for their families, our police officers, fire department officials as well, so that mom and dad can be tucked away someplace else in the store and the child gets to actually go shopping for their families. It's a really incredible event to witness. Next slide, please. The original and main reason we were created, to be able to accept significant grants from foundations and corporations, and we had our first opportunity this year. In May, we received the largest directed contribution in our very short history, a $250,000 grant from the Fred A. and Barbara M. Erb Family Foundation for the Royal Oak Arboretum. We thank the City Commission for renaming the park in tribute to that foundation's namesake, Fred A. Erb, on what would have been his 100th birthday. And these payments will come to us over 2 years as well. Next slide, please. Now the board looks forward to the next phase of its work, building support for our Community Benefit Fund. We would use these unrestricted funds to make grants to the city's programs and nonprofits in the community to fulfill our mission to improve the city's health, safety, and cultural opportunities by inspiring the philanthropy of residents and business leaders to support a thriving, resilient community. During the City Commission's last 2 planning sessions, you provided guidance on how to prioritize that giving. To accommodate our growth, we've invested in administrative tools this year, part of our becoming an adult. We invested in an e-tapestry online customer relationship management program, so we are able to capture data and watch donor trends over time. We opened a bank account, very simple, but it means we now have an outside place for people to give us money, and are transitioning our city-held funds into it currently. The WROK Foundation grant made it necessary for us to file our full 990 tax form as well, too, so something that shows our maturity as an organization. Next slide, please. And we have a website, so we have a public presence, and it helps folks understand who we are and what we do as well. We're very grateful to trustee Chris Bowers from Detroit Internet Marketing and his associate Scott Wittenko for their support. There was a lot of work this year, and a lot of it was centered on presenting ourselves for, next slide, our first public event. It technically sits in next year, but because of where it happened in the year and one of our large successes, we wanted to at least touch on it this year. We took advantage of an offer from our friend John Witz and Associates to hold Arts Beats and Eats on 5th, a fundraiser previewing festival food, arts, and entertainment. We pulled this event together in 2 months with a full court press by our trustees and, most importantly, our executive director, Jill Martin. To manage the event, she had to learn the customer management software on the fly and set up new financial records, basically building the airplane as we flew it. Good job, Jill, and special thanks to Susan Barkman, who provided staff support to the foundation during this transition. An additional thanks go to all of you, too. Many of you were able to attend the event. Many of you also supported the event, too, with your Arts Beats and Eats contribution, and that really boosted us. If you were there that evening, you saw kind of the great vibe that the event had, and for our inaugural event, really did 3 things. It raised money for us, it raised great visibility, and it raised friends. And we even found 2 of the trustees you're voting on tonight at that event as well. I'd also like to offer a special thank you to our friend John Witz, who's with us this evening as well. John worked really closely with us, he and his team, to help produce this event in really short stead. So it's a gentleman that we could not have done it without, and really appreciate his strong support of Royal Oak. Next slide. We'll add the Arts Beats and Eats fundraising net revenue to other unrestricted contributions, which will help us offer future grant funding to city entities. We're very grateful to former City Commissioner Pat Perush for asking that memorial contributions go to the Civic Foundation's unrestricted fund as well. Next slide. So here's a quick glance at our finances. Beginning cash at the start of the period was about $45,353, including previous year liabilities of $1,600, which were paid in fiscal year 22-23. We received donations total of $174,921.39 and dispersed $44,296 by June 30th of 2023. Our large donation from the WROK Family Foundation and a couple other donation disbursements were not made before June 30th, so they're still included in our cash at the end of period total, which is $177,220.38. Again, this total is our assets and liabilities of the undispersed funds of $130,625 that will be dispersed in fiscal year 23-24. We end the fiscal year with a total asset equity of $46,597.86. Next slide. This is a great slide to show where the money goes. And the Civic Foundation's 501c3 status makes it possible for corporate and foundation organizations to make donations for the direct benefit of the city. In fact, in fiscal year 22-23, the Royal Oak Civic Foundation facilitated more than $157,900 in corporate or foundation funders. This is 90% of our total donations. Clearly, our ability to accept funding from diverse types of donors is a great benefit to the city and fulfills the promise that we made to you when we started, that we'd be relevant and helpful. Next slide, please. Administratively, we are running the foundation on a shoestring. We're very conscious of the low expenses. Our financial reports don't reflect the enormous value of the 2022-23 staffing from Julie Lyonsbricker, Susan Barkman, and Jill Martin. In the coming years, our non-granting expenses will rise as we are required to conduct an audit and launch a marketing campaign to increase annual giving and begin a planned giving program as well. We've had positive conversations with city management about acquiring seed funding to ramp up the foundation's efforts for even larger fundraising. Next slide, please. So you have two functions to help us. One is you create us or sunset us, and the other is that you appoint trustees to our organization. We've asked you to, we're recommending 3 and are asking you to support 3 new members as trustees. David Guest, who's here with us tonight, Julie Linesbricker, also with us, and John Peets, to 3-year terms ending in 2026. Mr. Guest is a CPA, and we will look to him for assistance as we transition our finances and file an annual 990 tax return. Ms. Linesbricker, of course, is the past executive director of the foundation and is coming back to help us with that really complex customer service software too. It's something. And Mr. Peets is a retired Corewell Health finance executive. So we're starting to add folks who really understand finance to our board. And it's part of our 5-year strategic mission for the types of backgrounds we need to bring to our organization. So we'll ask you to support those this evening. And also want to comment on the high skills of our collection of our board. We come from all different elements of this community, and it's rare to have a board with this high performance level. Very dedicated volunteers, very generous with their time and their resources as well. We're very, very lucky. So last slide. Questions? What can I answer about our last year?
Questions for Mr. McGann?
Yes.
Thanks for the great report. I saw in the report that you sort of suggested this in your report as well, that the Arts Paintings preview, you're thinking about doing that again and maybe with a little more lead time, make some changes. If you could tell us more about what you're planning for that for next year.
Yes, yes, and yes. So our plan is to start working on that event, giving ourselves at least 7 to 9 months of pre-planning on it this time. It came across as a great opportunity that we couldn't pass up. And it'll give us additional lead time to engage more community sponsors, give us an opportunity to, and it was a great event at its outset, but work with John on more programming and just take the creative element of starting a special event with more lead time and helping engage more community members as well. So our goal would be to raise maybe $50,000 next year. And the event was very lean expense-wise as well, but we were able to pay for everything and still have that profit afterwards too.
Just a question for, how to obtain contributions. Do you see more, and this is more of a future-oriented question, do you see more of this being organic? I mean, 90% I think you showed there was corporations and benefactors of that kind, 16,000 I think from private donations. Do you see that changing? Do you see how you pursue? Is it something that, hey, corporations are really willing to do this and we should, have a lead person that, makes calls and tries to bring in revenue for the foundation? Can you kind of talk a little bit maybe more personally about where you see that now that we're kind of getting our legs under this? What does it look like, 2 years from now, 3 years from now, when you're sort of in that steady state?
Sure. So our initial plans for our 5-year strategic goal is to start with annual giving. It's the typical donors who might self-identify to support any of the Royal Oak civic groups, the animal shelter, the senior center, things like that. Those are folks who self-identify because they've either been impacted by that organization or want to support it. And that's organic fundraising. The next piece that we put in order because of an opportunity was special events. It was our plan to do that possibly this year, but probably next. And that we had the opportunity early, it was something we couldn't turn down at all because it has great potential to grow. And as we look at some of the key events in our market that we would be able to connect with, Arts Beats and Eats, the Woodward Dream Cruise, I mean, we have the ability to help people understand who we are because we're affiliating with events that they love already. Yep. And so our special event fundraising will also grow, which also identifies annual donors. And then our next pieces that we want to work on are planned and memorial giving. Memorial giving came inadvertently to us this past year. And that type of giving where our organization puts together very respectful practices to help people know that we can be a resource when they're at a time of grief, that we can provide some sort of lasting tribute as well.
Sure.
That's a great opportunity for us to show our value to the city and our aging seniors who might want to make a contribution as a planned gift, our next group after that, so that they might look at some sort of gift that is transformational and that they can pay for and see maybe before while they're still here as well. And then we look at major gifts in the longer term where we're able to solicit individuals who want to have that big impact as well. And meanwhile, we have a very robust corporate community in Royal Oak, and we'll be tapping into that all the way along.
Very nice. Yeah, and I think that's the right way because the strength of, consistency is going to come with the organic, annuals every year. Those gifts really matter and, are important, and they can be the foundation for the foundation. And then as you don't want a year where, we got, a big corporate gift, and then the next 2 years we didn't, that's a tough way to run a foundation. So really building the base and building, from, annuals, I think is a really good idea, a really good way to approach it.
Other thoughts or ideas that you'd like for us to consider as we grow quickly? We're growing quicker than we planned, and it's a good thing.
Commissioner Cole.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you for coming out today. It's always great to see you all and the great work that you do. How large is the board? Can you remind me of that?
I think with the new 3 that we're appointing, I think there'll be 11 of us. Is it 12?
11 or 12.
11, yeah.
Do you have plans to grow that a little bit more? Or do you see to continue that growth to bring in more people and resources? Because I'm sure you all are working for it, right? It's not going around and saying making decisions and then someone else is doing it. It's you doing the work. So do you see that growth continuing next year or two?
We do. We have a 5-year plan that we created at our outset. And we identified 3 strategic business backgrounds that we needed to add each year. A great example in the last year when we added a marketing consultant, that gentleman brought forward his company to help us build a website and build graphics quickly and be able to resource the Arts Meets and Eats event with all the collateral that we needed so quickly because we had that in place as well. So planned giving executives, we included that this past year too. So we'll be starting to market our expertise, working with that community volunteer as well. And fortunately, in the next year, we'll be putting together probably our next 3-year plan of other career backgrounds we need to add to our board.
That's great. And then was a conscious decision made to make the logo one shade off on the colors? Because it's killing my OCD right now.
Yes, it was. We actually redesigned all our logo and pieces this year to make them more graphically pleasing for social. The pieces that we had a great project. We worked with Oakland University, and a student did it as their senior project, and created a nice suite of graphics, and it was all very appropriate. And we enjoyed it until we had to start using it a lot and realized that horizontal is better than vertical in this. And some actual experts who advised us that, fortunately, on our board, helped us revamp it quickly. So
You just make that one shade shift back to
no, we'll see what we can do about that for sure.
Thank you.
Commissioner Hunt.
Thank you for coming out and giving your presentation this evening. You've mentioned the 5-year plan, your 5-year strategic plan. Is that available to the public? And if so, where can we find it? Would it be on your website or?
I'm trying to think if we do put it on our website. If not, we can. I think, let me see if it was, we might have published this year's worth in the annual report we gave you. Let me see if that was included.
I was scrolling through and I couldn't find it, but if it's there, I
Then I'm glad
apologize.
to send it to commission for sure. We'll send it to you offline for sure, to the whole group, so you can see where we've come and what we pre-identified would be the next pieces to add and where we're going.
Thank you.
Sure.
All right. Any other questions? Okay.
So you have a vote in front of you of some new trustees.
3.
And 3 new trustees to add that we hope that you'll affirm. And we'll see you next year.
Thank you. Commissioner Douglas.
Yes, Mayor. If I may, I'd like to make a motion.
Yeah, motion.
That the sole member of the Royal Oak Civic Foundation appoint David Guest, Julie Lyons-Bricker, and John Peets to 3-year terms on the Board of Trustees.
Motion by Commissioner Douglas. Is there a second? Second by Commissioner Herzog. All right, discussion. I'll just add, I mean, it was a pretty convincing argument. I know one of the individuals pretty well, and I think she'll make an excellent member of the board and bring a lot of that energy to the table. And I think the backgrounds of the others, especially when you're starting off, accounting, finance, really matter. Doing good things is obviously the main objective of any foundation, but having that financial competence built in early on is going to be really important. And I think we have some pretty good experts to help us with that. So fully be supporting this motion. All right. And I'm not biased. All right, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion passes. All right. Very good. Oh, here's the agenda for the foundation. All right. So we have the recommendation. We had that motion pass unanimously, so that brings us to public comment. Given the audience I see here tonight, I'll skip the normal spiel and just inform everyone you have 3 minutes to address the body. So I'll open up public comment. Anyone here wish to speak on foundation issues only? The Royal Oak Civic Foundation?
As a member of the public, but I'd like to just thank again John. Just great work.
Wonderful. All right. Okay, then I'll close public comment and we'll bring the meeting back up to this side of the table. And I think that's the end of our agenda. So notwithstanding anything more, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. Commissioner Colo?
So moved.
We have a motion by Commissioner Colo, supported by Commissioner Macy. Discussion? All right, with none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion passes. All right, we're adjourned.
So we're rewriting the recounts.
I think we got everyone. Everyone back.
This is Wednesday.
Rewriting the recounts all right now. Like I was in a meeting with
So this might be
Senator
someone
Chang,
from us.
and Joe, and Byron.
All right, good evening, everyone. We're going to get started here tonight, a few minutes late. Appreciate your patience. We had an excellent Royal Oak Civic Foundation meeting ahead of this, and so now we're going to start and call to order the December 11, 2023 Royal Oak City Commission meeting to order. We're going to begin with the Pledge of Allegiance, followed by an invocation. I ask that you stand if you can, please. Oh, we're going to start with the invocation and then the Pledge of Allegiance. I'm sorry. All right. Tonight is the first regular City Commission meeting of the 52nd Royal Oak City Commission. I'm thankful for my colleagues and their desire to serve the city we love. I'm grateful that each of you bring a unique experience and perspective to the table to help keep the city on the right path forward. While we will never fully agree on every issue in front of us, I believe in my heart that we will always respect each other and encourage constructive deliberation as we strive for the best possible outcomes. May we together set an example of what democracy can be and should be. We pray for the safety of all those serving our city, both in uniform and not. We pray that the unhoused and undernourished find warmth, food, and compassion from those more fortunate. And we pray for all our fellow Royal Oak citizens and offer our appreciation for their trust in us. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, that brings us to item 5, which is the approval of the agenda. Commissioner Colo.
Approval of the agenda.
We have a motion by Commissioner Colo, a second by Commissioner Macy. Discussion on the agenda. All right, with none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion passes. We have an agenda. All right, this brings us to item 5, which is public comment. Just a few quick ground rules before we commence. The City Commission values and relies on the input of our fellow citizens to help make decisions. Now is the time set aside for the public to address the City Commission on any city-related issues, both on the agenda or not. I ask that comments be directed to the Commission as a whole and not to individual commissioners. If you wish to speak tonight at public comment, please wait until recognized by me and then come to the podium. For the record, we will ask that you state your name and address. Please be mindful that we wish to hear from anyone who wants to speak tonight, so comments are limited to 3 minutes per speaker, not per topic. And we have a timer at the podium to help you keep track of your time. If you don't wish to speak tonight, please don't hesitate at any time to email us your questions or your comments. We're happy to help. And please note that the City Commission typically doesn't respond directly to questions during public comment. However, we are taking notes, and when that topic is discussed, we will ask those questions. Or if your questions or comments are unrelated to a city agenda item, our city manager and commissioners are taking notes and will get you the answers as appropriate. I kindly ask that if you can, please leave your contact information, typically with Ms. Davids, and if she's not here tonight, just if you want to leave your contact information at the table up by the chief, then we know how to get back to you if you have a question. It's hard to answer questions sometimes if people don't give us a way to get back to them. So with that, who's first? Mr. Arvid.
Thank you very much. I know I've sent you an email with all of my very detailed explanation of why I'm objecting to the 503 South Troy project. So I'll just read the cover letter as part of my 3 minutes. Most of you know my history here as an advocate of walkable and dense urban development in the Central Business District. I've been here since 1997, and when I built my house, I built it because I really loved the town, and I knew that it was going to become more developed, and I welcome most of that development. I voted for each and every one of you because I know that you kind of share similar values that I do. So I would generally agree about this kind of project. But even so, I continue to object to the project because it's just too big. The setbacks are not reasonable relative to the neighbors, and it's not a transitional building. It's at least as big as most buildings in the Central Business District, and it's not in the Central Business District. In the recent master plan study, the consultant didn't recommend rezoning properties and didn't recommend the use of public plan unit development. So if you vote for it, you're actually voting against the recommendations of the master planning consultants. I agree with the sentiment. That is not what the developer has done here. The developer is building an excessive building and maxing out the site. And if you do that, it should be in the Central Business District. You've seen all of my arguments that I've posted. So with that, I just want to hope that you'll consider them very carefully and consider that this is a very precedent-setting project, and it doesn't set a good precedent relative to transitional lots around Royal Oak. So thank you very much. Have a Merry Christmas and a Happy Holidays to all of you. Thank you.
Mr. Harrison.
Thank you, Mayor. Bill Harrison, 2729 Trafford and Royal Oak. Here to again address the location of the proposed YMCA City Community Center. I ask that you consider the original Center Street structure site as an alternative to the 6th and Main surface lot. The Center Street site is essentially the same size as shown by the overlay site plan. I had the handout passed to you, and you can see by the diagram the pencil overlays the layout in yellow that shows the surface lot. And you want to tear down the original Center Street structure anyway. Also, the DDA should be included in the city YMCA feasibility study. I spoke to the DDA and I was surprised to find that they're not included in this, that they've been excluded. It's not right. If necessary, the city and the DDA can purchase the former Peking House building on the northwest corner of the site. The city and the DDA have collaborated to purchase existing buildings at 696 and Woodward in order to assemble a marketable parcel of land. The 2023 parking study map shows the surface lot highly occupied relative to the parking structure on Saturday. It's about the fourth one in. You can see it flaming red versus green. The 2006 parking study showed a shortfall essentially equal between the Center Street lot and the proposed purchased land, and that's on this page, okay? And then this is what I call the spider diagram that showed the reach of the three areas considered for the parking to determine whether it was adequate or not. Additionally, the surface lot provides an alternative for those who will not park in structures. I've got 19 seconds left, and I was observing between the Etkin building and the post office that you have front-in parking and still have an MPS system. My question is, if that's working successfully, why can't we have front-end parking on Washington that, like you have between the post office and the Etkin building? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Harrison. Anybody else wish to speak? Mr. Ashley.
Alan Ashley, Royal Oak Manor. I'm kind of against the 503 in a sense that it's one block from where we live. We now have a structure with 70 apartments being built. We have a church and a school going to be in that area. That is going to be a very congested area with traffic. I'm worried about my seniors. I'm also worried about the kids who are right there. They have a parking lot where they play, balls go outside. That is going to be right in that area where that building is. What I don't understand is this city wants to get, they still have this idea that if it's flat, we build up. The problem is you're turning this city into a transit city. Those apartments, soon as they get one or two kids, they're going to be moving out. Sooner or later, with all these apartments in this city, you're going to have empty spaces. What I would rather see is 3 or 4 houses on that same lot where there's single family houses where people can actually grow families and grow the community. But as you have it now with with that 27 apartments and a small store, the traffic is going to be terrible on Troy and on Williams, all in that congested area around the school, the church, and the seniors. And it's going to be a very bad area. So I see no plans to anything to help the congestion in there. Also on the YMCA, if that goes up on that parking lot, P7, there is no parking left in this city. Those bars on BW will disappear. Bandit and all these other bars that are on Main Street on that south end, there is no parking. People will not park in the parking garage. Young kids will not sit and park in the parking garage. Maybe a way around it, if you had all full-time night parking, have valets in those parking, they give the keys to the valet, they park it, and when you come back, you turn a ticket in, and the people will bring their car to them, so they don't have to go up 3 or 4 floors. Believe it or not, when I was growing up, we used to go down to Hudson's and the Kearns. Some of you people don't even know where those are anymore, but I do as a kid. We parked in parking garage, gave the kids gave the keys to the attendants, and they took the car up and parked it and came back. We never have to go any farther than the first floor. Maybe that's what you need in our parking garages. They have nighttime valets, so people don't have to worry about walking up the stairs, dark, in those parking garages. That might be a way to save maybe downtown in parking. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ashley. Yes, ma'am.
Nancy Poprowski, 119 Batavia. Thanks for listening. Happy holidays and congratulations on the election. In the new year and always, I hope all of us can become more seriously focused on our children's futures. If we don't stop fooling ourselves with using Band-Aids for the Earth's survival, our children will never vote or celebrate holidays. They'll be too busy trying to survive unbearable heat, devastating floods, drought, famine, etc. All because the people who should have been protecting them were more worried about having cool cities. These very over-cemented cool cities will not become, or will become, hot cities, and I don't mean because they're in the place to be. Some really great things have happened in Royal Oak, but excessive overdevelopment, excessive lifestyles, or basing a city on its entertainment should never be our first priority. People's health, welfare, and safety should always be first. City planning should be inclusive. It shouldn't always matter if the majority rules. This might mean children who can't protect their future, seniors with hardships, or anyone challenged will suffer, all because we weren't sensitive to an individual's needs or put their vulnerability at the bottom of the city's priorities. Just because you aren't or are vocal, the majority, or on someone's favored list, doesn't mean you don't have the right to be protected by your leaders. Showing humanity is what a real city or community should be. This should always be a priority. No individual should be left behind for so-called progress, development, or majority rule. Be kind, because you never know if you'll face or be the next hardship. We all need to have positive plans. Our children's futures will not have dreams if we don't wake up to the problems we have created today. So thanks for all your good efforts, but please remember about saving our future. It's the right thing to do. And then maybe we can have many happy and healthy New Years. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Poprowski. Who's next? Mr. Sackett.
Good evening. I guess congratulations again on your re-elections for those that did. Mark Sackett, General Manager, Royal Oak Leprechauns. We've been working with a lot of your city officials, the Parks and Rec Advisory Board, everyone, Deborah in Finance, and just trying to figure out what the best thing to do, what direction we can head on. Hopefully you'll have a proposal for your next meeting. The proposal involves the Leprechauns investing $130,000 into Memorial Park. With that investment in the park, we'll bring hospitality suites and areas for people to view not only baseball games, but this past fall we saw almost 1,000 people at that park for a cross-country race, a regional cross-country event for the high schools. So we'll have areas for those people as well. So we're looking at improving that park in a lot of great ways, and you'll see that proposal hopefully your next meeting. As the saying goes in the movie The Field of Dreams, if you build it, they will come. I think you have allowed us to build it, and they have come with several colleges now renting that field, a lot of youth baseball tournaments and softball tournaments taking place at Memorial Park. People are coming to that park. As John Fideli calls it, Memorial Park is your premier park, and I know you have 51 other parks to deal with as well. But another problem, I guess, we created by providing that, or at least doing the field and bringing the Leprechauns here, is the interest in ROSL, the Sandlot League, the local rec league here in Royal Oak. They're expecting an increase of over 30% for next season, which is great. They've got great leadership, so I commend them there. But as they increase in size, they need to make sure their playing surface are all very safe, and in the viewing areas need to be safe. So looking at Memorial Park, I know for sure, I encourage you to take a look at those grandstands. They're in kind of scary condition. They're not safe. They're not ADA. So I think that's one of the proposals in the budget for a capital improvement. There's netting that has got holes in it, needs to be repaired, or at least better set up. I know we had one of our fans last year, batter on deck, the bat slipped out of his hand and it went over the dugout and hit one of the ladies walking down the road. So that was kind of but the girl was okay. So, and I actually knew who she was, so she can tough it out. But it's a concern for everybody else to make sure netting and the stands are safe for people to watching not only the Leprechaun games, but any activity going on there at the park. So between that, but also as ROSL grows, we need to make sure that there are other fields at other parks that are taken care of, and that playing surface has got to be safe for those kids. So we're hoping that with the proposal we're giving, that you can see what we're doing. We are making donations that are getting close to about $10,000 in donations back to the ROSL through equipment stuff and through using the concession stand there. So I think we're giving a lot back to the community, and we just need to make sure that as the leadership group here, that we are providing safe and a healthy environment for all the kids who use the parks. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sackett. Anybody else wish to speak at public comment tonight? Going once, going twice. All right, we're going to close public comment and bring the meeting back to this side of the table. So we are now on item 6, which is the consent agenda. Does anyone wish to pull anything off the consent agenda to discuss further? No? Okay. Does anyone wish to make a motion on the consent agenda? Commissioner Macy.
Move approval?
A motion by Commissioner Macy, a second by Commissioner Cheatham. All right, discussion? All right, I'll call for a vote on the consent agenda as presented. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion passes. All right, that brings us to item 7, which is the appointment of the interim city manager. And I think I'll start with a quick intro. I think it would be challenging for the interim or acting city manager to start. In fact, I'll hand it over to you, Mr. Grachowski, and
Thanks.
maybe you can kick it off.
No problem.
Since you're
Thank
waiting 3 times, I'll let you do it.
Mayor, Commission, before you for your consideration is the request for a resolution to appoint interim city manager. As you know, due to the resignation of Mr. Brake, Deputy City Manager Fenton has been acting city manager to ensure the continued smooth operation of city operations and functions. Mr. Fenton is willing to serve as an interim city manager while this commission decides its next step in finding selecting its next city manager. So we have a resolution to that effect, effective today, and a resolution directing our office to draft an interim agreement, which we hope to have, if approved, have to you at the next meeting.
Okay. Questions? Any questions? Okay. Any motions or comments? Commissioner Douglas?
Yeah, I'll move approval of the resolution as presented.
Okay, we have a motion by Commissioner Douglas. Is there a second? Second by Commissioner Herzog. Discussion. I'll just add, I think this is, I appreciate the resolution. I think, we obviously got the resignation letter from Mr. Brake. we certainly wish Mr. Brake well in his next endeavors, whatever they may be. We're grateful for his service over the last 3 years and his commitment to the city of Royal Oak, and certainly wish him very well in his endeavors. I will say we're fortunate in the city to have a deep bench of experienced people in all of our departments, and that we're fortunate to have Mr. Fenton as being a deputy city manager for a number of years now. Time flies.
It's 2.5?
2.5 years. I feel like we did it last week, but it's been 2.5 years. And certainly as Director of Economic Development and running that department for a number of years as well, he brings consistency to the table in a time where we have a vacancy. So I think this is the right fit at the right time while we figure out our next steps. So I'll be supporting the motion. All right. I'll call for the vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion passes. All right. So just to clarify, Mr. Grochowski, the next step will be to have an agreement presented to the commission in a future meeting, if that's something that, I won't put you on a strict timeline, but.
That is correct. Actually, it's pretty much drafted, so I anticipate having it on the 18th, barring any unusual happenings.
Okay.
Should have it to you soon.
Perfect. Okay. All right. So that brings us to number 8, which is the acceptance of the fiscal year ending June 30th, 2023 financial audit and comprehensive financial report. We have a great audit review team. I see Chairman Maiden is here along with Mr. Balderman. And I see we have our finance director here as well, Ms. Lichtenberg. So I will hand it over to that team to kick us off, and we'll go from there. Ms. Lichtenberg?
Good evening, Mayor and Commissioners. I am very pleased to present you this evening with the completed audit report for the fiscal year ended June 30, 2023. With me tonight is John Matten, who is the chair of the Audit Review Committee, and Mr. Nate Balderman, who is the principal auditor from Raymond Robson. The Audit Review Committee met on November 20th to review the 3 documents that are included in your packet. The first one being the auditor's communication letter. The second is the large document, which is the annual comprehensive financial report, which you'll also hear us refer to as the ACFR, and the single audit compliance report, which lists all of our federal grant activity. Mr. Balderman presented the Audit Review Committee with the results, and I'm very pleased to announce that once again, the city received an unmodified audit opinion, which is also known as a clean opinion. There were no findings of any material weaknesses, significant deficiencies, non-compliance, or any other misstatements. We incorporated one new accounting standard in this year's audit report and financial documents, which is tracking of subscription-based information technology arrangements. And we ended the year with a general fund unassigned fund balance of almost $11.8 million. And this keeps us in our targeted fund balance range of the 10 to 25%. I do want to point out that our ACFR had received for the fiscal year June 30, 2022, the 15th consecutive award from the National Government Finance Officers Association, which is the Certificate of Achievement for Excellence in Financial Reporting. We anticipate that this year's report will also meet those requirements, and we'll be submitting again for hopefully our 16th year in a row. And I would just like to take a moment to thank my team in the finance department, in particular, Tony DeCamp, who really takes the lead on coordinating everything with the auditors, Rebecca Chase, my senior accountant, and Jane Marie Eubanks in Treasury, who all exert a great deal of effort in getting Mr. Balderman and his team all of the information that they need. So with that, I don't know if Mr. Matten or Mr. Balderman have anything to add, or if there are any questions.
Any questions for Director Lichtenberg at the moment? Okay. Mr. Balderman?
There's not a lot I can add. She stole my spiel, but I do want to thank the city for the continued relationship that we have with the finance department. Always very well prepared for us, especially this year in navigating the new standards. I think one of the few clients that I had that kind of took that on their own 100%. Obviously, we had the audit side of that, which was an undertaking, but actually implementing the standard, I will say, it was one of the more difficult standards. You think of all the different ones that have been out there, it was probably one of the more difficult standards to implement in quite some time, just because a lot of the nuances and really it's something this standard is unique to governments. They didn't adopt the same thing for commercial entities. So, but yeah, if you do have any questions, be happy to answer them now, but also feel free to reach out at any time if you think of anything.
Any questions for Mr. Baldwin? So just to be clear, and I appreciate Director Lichtenberg's way of translating, an unmodified opinion is a clean opinion.
Correct.
So leave it up to the auditors to take something exciting like this is a clean opinion and translate it into an unmodified opinion.
Exactly.
All right. I just want to make sure we're getting it right. Okay. Mr. Maiden? By the way, Mr. Maiden is a treasurer. He has been on the Audit Review Committee for a very long time. And as chairman since, what did we say, 2000? Was it 2002?
I've been on the committee since 98 or 99, 98? I think. I don't know, something like that. Before we were getting all the awards for the, when you said that, I thought, wait, I predate that. but anyway, no, and I invite the new commissioner especially, invite you to next year's meeting. It's a fun-filled evening of walking through the audit. We always ask for public comment, and I think out of all the years I've had it, we've had one person come, and I think it was a student that needed credit or something. but anyway, but no. The finance department does a great job in preparing for the audit. Nate does a great job of walking us through that, and we've made the meetings very efficient. We have a couple new members this year as well on the finance or on the audit review committee, so it works out well. So we have nothing else to add to that.
Thank you, Mr. Meade. Thank you for your service too. All right. I'll just add that over the years I've had the privilege of sitting on this committee and getting probably a little more close and personal with some of our financial statements, talking a little bit more of a casual setting about, things that we're doing well, and every now and then things that the city commission can do better to help finance out. We have an amazing finance team. It's really hard to do this. Cities are, Mr. Balderman indicated, especially with some of the changes that have come down the pike, this is really hard stuff to stay organized and to do, especially as a mid-sized city. Would just like to thank again your effort, Director Lichtenberg and Tony's and everybody else's in the finance department, because it's a challenge, and you guys year in and year out find a way to make it work and give that transparency that our citizens not only expect, but that they deserve. And so we're very grateful for that. Okay, Commissioner Macy.
Move approval of the resolution to accept.
A motion by Commissioner Macy. Is there a second? Second by Commissioner Cheatham. All right. I will, any discussion on the motion? All right, with that, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion passes. All right. Thank you.
Speaking into a dead mic.
And I'll say Mr. Balderman's team does an amazing job as well at Riemann, going over and working with our staff as well. I can't forget Mr. Balderman. All right. Sir, public comment was over like 4 agenda items ago.
I will be happy to go home.
Oh, all right. Well, on that positive energy, that brings us to item 9, which is the Planning Commission recommendation rezoning 503 South Troy Plan Unit Development, first reading. Mr. Twing.
Mayor, member of the commission, welcome the new commissioners. You do have a recommendation in front of you from the Planning Commission. It is in regards to 503 South Troy Street. The developer property owner has requested that you consider a rezoning from multifamily residential to planned unit development. The Planning Commission did discuss it at 2 different meetings, their January 10th, 2023 meeting with a public hearing, and then their March 14th, 2023. That normally wouldn't be that long, but the petitioner over the last few months has asked that staff not bring this on to the commission until this meeting. That's why there's a large gap. The request that they presented is to construct a 27-unit multifamily building. It's a mix of 1-bedroom and studio units. They are proposing 1 parking space per unit, so there's 27 shown on the site plan in front of you that's associated with the rezoning. The building itself is about 44 feet tall to the roof line. It extends a little beyond that with the parapet wall. You will see in the cover memo that's provided by staff I will call them deviations from specific ordinance requirements. As part of a planned unit development, the Planning Commission and the City Commission have discretion on approving those deviations from setbacks, density requirements, so on. You'll see those on page 3 in a table summarizing those. The Planning Commission did or is recommending approval of this rezoning to the City Commission. The list of their contingencies are listed on page 2. It's basically recommending approval of the associated site plan. Again, this is first reading with any ordinance change. If you pass it this evening, it would come back to you at a second reading. In the interim, if you approve it this evening with no changes, we will start drafting a development agreement with the petitioner, and both that and the site plan would come back to you for a second reading. Would probably be the first meeting in January if everything goes forward tonight. As we indicate, you can accept the recommendation as submitted from the Planning Commission. You can consider modifications this evening, and I know the petitioners are here to address their plan in particular and any questions you may have of them or myself.
Questions for Mr. Twing? Commissioner Macy.
Sorry, I do have a question for you. So, I mean, when I look at the list of things that the variances that are granted, and a lot of them are like, this is the required setback and this goes to 0. But then when I look at the map, it looks like there are setbacks. Am I reading one of those 2 wrong, or am I just?
Well, generally the north side of the property is along the side street, and so you'll see that it comes right to the property line. So it varies between no setback and 8 feet 8 inches of a setback. So the building isn't. It varies between those in terms of the setback, if that's what the one you're referring to. The one on the east side has a 2-foot setback from the property line. And the one on the west side, or Troy Street, has a 1.5-foot setback from the property line. You will see the sidewalk, the curb, all of those items are further out, but the actual measurement of the setback is from the property line.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Colo.
I'm sorry, just to clarify, because looking at the map, the 2-foot setback, are we talking about the building to the property line? Because on the east side, that's not the 8-foot section right there?
Right.
Or is the 8-foot section on the south side of the building?
Pull it up. Yeah, the building is set to, excuse me. I think I was reading from the wrong one. Sorry. There are no setbacks on the west or north, and then there's 6 on the east rear. So I'm sorry, I was reading from the wrong
So
page.
tug in the corner.
Yep.
In the right of way.
Yep.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Mr. Twing?
Anything else?
All right. Well, we have the petitioner here tonight. Does the petitioner wish to come and make statements and answer questions?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Dennis Cowan with Plunket Cooney on behalf of Carbon on Troy LLC. And with me this evening is our ownership team, Tim Palmer and Jeff Julius, and our architect of record, Ray Phillips. We have a very brief presentation. I'm going to speak, then do a little introduction of the project, then Mr. Palmer, and then Mr. Phillips will just briefly lead through the project, and then we'll entertain any questions. First of all, to the new commissioners, welcome. To Mr. Fenton, God bless you. You have the hot seat. No, welcome aboard. It's always a great evening having new commissioners and a new interim city manager at the same evening. That's really great. This is a precedent-setting project for the city of Royal Oak. It is the first attempt to have a near net zero building, which is to provide as much energy as the building consumes. This is really the impetus of this project that comes from our ownership team. In terms of development, it's a modest development of 27 units. It's 3 stories. It's less than the size of many of the buildings in the vicinity, including the old Michigan Bell building, the church, Royal Oak Manor, and the newly constructed Hazelton. It is zoned multifamily in this area. Troy, from Lincoln South, so to speak, or 4th Street South, is been trending multifamily over the last several years. So we are very consistent with what type of construction is occurring in the vicinity. The hallmark of this project is environmental sustainability. And I refer you to the Kane Thomas study, which I attached to my letter and which the staff attached to its report. And its conclusion is that based upon the plans that were presented and the follow through with those plans and installation of all the sustainability features, that this will result in 54% less energy consumption than what's called the baseline building. And with the solar array that will be placed on the top, will reach an efficiency of 75%. There is additional room for improvement with the plan that the owners have to work with their tenants to understand energy consumption and how they can reduce it. So that is, again, I believe, a precedent-setting project. We are very consistent, and I think exceed clearly the community benefit guidelines, not only from an environmental sustainability aspect, but also we have 5 units set aside for the workforce consistent with your policy. So at this time, that gives kind of the overview of the highlights of the project. I do want to mention that we, as always, are very grateful to Mr. Thwing and his staff. There were a lot of moving parts on this project, which they helped us corral in, and we have, I think, a good project and a better project because of their input. So at this time, I want to ask Mr. Palmer to step forward.
Good evening, council members. Congratulations on your recent election. My name is Tim Palmer. I stand here tonight to provide some context into the thinking behind this site. I had a professor when I was getting a graduate degree out in Stanford named Amory Lovins, who started the Rocky Mountain Institute and who is a profound voice in the conservation and sustainability movement. Amory's impact on me was to focus on efficiency, whether it be in construction, industry, transportation, or any major use of energy and thus emissions. Efficiency is where we can make substantial gains without egregious outlays of capital, without covering all of our farmland and solar, and without forcing people to drastically change their lifestyles. An LED light bulb uses nearly 1/10 the energy as an incandescent bulb. An electric car is 5 times as efficient as your average gas vehicle. A smartphone replaces 10 to 15 household and office appliances. And airtight, highly insulated buildings with proper orientation use a fraction of the energy as a standard code constructed building. We consider this site our first iteration, Mark I motto, and with it, and one we'll use as a proof of concept to showcase some of these building methods. Our hope is through a successful build, happy tenants, mixed with a little positive PR, we can help spread the word to the fragmented construction industry and continue to ignite the movement of better, healthier buildings. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Palmer.
Good evening, Commissioners. I think Tim, and Dennis kind of summed up pretty well what we're trying to do here. I'll touch on a couple other items. So we are proposing a 4-story residential building. First floor is podium parking, providing 27 parking spaces for the 27 units, 15 of which will be covered, and all 15 of those parking spaces will be EV charging capable. We are going for a near net zero building, as Dennis mentioned. We're going above and beyond the code minimums for HVAC, wall and roof insulation, and windows, which bring us a 53% less energy when we look at the building energy modeling that was done by the MEP engineer. And typically you don't bring an MEP engineer on this early in a project. But we thought it was very important to start looking at the real numbers and what we could be working with here. And as Dennis mentioned, the solar panels that are on the roof is covering the entire roof. Our HVAC that we have is all located within the units themselves, which frees up the entire roof to fill it with solar panels, and which again brings us up to a 75% less energy when looking at the building energy modeling. And as far as the site goes, we have 2 means of vehicle ingress and egress, one on South Troy Street and one on East 5th Street. And we are proposing a left turn only for the exit out onto East 5th Street, which will help direct traffic away from the neighborhood and onto the main streets. And we're here for any other questions that you might have about the project.
Questions? Commissioner Hahn.
Well, thank you for your presentation. I appreciate the effort to make this building a near net zero building. I see that on the top of the roof, it's pretty much all covered in solar panels. Where will the mechanical aspects be?
They would be located inside each dwelling unit. We're looking at possibly doing VTAC HVAC. So the condenser and the air handler are both package unit inside the unit.
Okay. And are there, I saw that there were bike racks on the outside. Are there any bike storage or anything on the inside?
We are planning on introducing some interior bike storage, yes.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Yep.
Commissioner Colo.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think this is a lovely project. It really hits a lot of like what we're looking to do in Royal Oak. It's well designed. I think it's going to be good for the community. I do have two questions. The first one is, we had a concern from a citizen, and I agree with it, about a potential vision and sight line as you come out of Fifth Street there. And this proposal doesn't have that 10-foot triangle that would allow for a vision. Is there a way that you could see a design keeping the same aspect and feel of the building that would allow that 10-foot triangle to exist? I look at like Bamboo downtown. They have that entrance that is kind of cut out to allow for vision off the street. Is there a way that could potentially be incorporated without a major change to your building?
I believe so. So currently we do have a lot of glass, so you would be able to see through. That is another option where we could look at actually carving out that corner. A column would still have to remain there because it's very expensive to try and cantilever and support 3 floors, but that's something we can look at.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions?
Because I have.
Commissioner Herzog.
Thank you for this project. I think it aligns with what we're trying to do here in the city with our climate goals. And this proof of concept will hopefully get others to get on board with as far as trying to build net zero. But my question isn't about energy. It's in the list of things that you're going to include. It says drought tolerant plant species and landscaping. Is there a reason why for those?
I believe that was to reduce the frequency that you would have to water the plants.
Okay. Okay, thanks.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you. We'll have a discussion and ask you to come back up if we have more questions.
Awesome, thank you.
All right, thank you. All right. Commissioner Macy.
I guess I'll start because it sounds like that other end of the table is looking favorably on this project. I do think it's beautiful. It seems like it's cutting it really, really close on all of these things that we ask for in these developments. So I love the net zero. I love all the things that they've done to check those boxes for us, but I still have some concerns about how it fits into the city and into that neighborhood. Definitely the 10-foot corner, I think, is a problem. So anyway, I just wonder if others are sharing those concerns or if I'm out on my own here.
Yeah, sure. No, I appreciate that. We had a lot of discussion, I think, at length during planning, and probably our most experienced planning board member might elaborate more than I can. One of the things that went through my head, at least sitting on planning, is, yeah, there are, I won't say concerns, but there are trade-offs, for sure. Certainly we've asked as part of our future orientation that we're looking for solutions for affordability. We're looking for solutions for aging in place. We're looking for solutions for environmental sustainability. And I think when these projects come our way, even without the net approaching zero, density, is density. More dense housing options really are, tackle each one of those elements. I mean, the more dense a project is, the less energy it's using, the less land mass it's taking up. If people are choosing to live in one of these units versus, a single family home, that's immediately better for the environment. In order to do that, things are expensive. And you can find from most of the development community that one of the ways you get there is to add a couple more units in and kind of fill out that space a little bit more, which means you need some variances in order to fit the cars in and to fit the easements in and everything. And so that's a trade-off, so to speak. It's, unwinding some of those things would probably mean that the project would have to unwind some of the environmental sustainability features that are really highlighted as far as its benefits to the community. So, like Mr. Arvin, I hear him, I understand exactly what he's saying. I don't say I disagree on everything, but I don't say I agree on everything that he's saying. I think that there is, and this area is sort of a transition area between the downtown and neighborhoods. So I think what you're bringing up is it's not to be muted, it's not to be thrown away, but on planning, when we looked at this a couple times, it was, in my opinion, at least for me, there's that trade-off you have to look at. And so that's how my thought process went. But I don't know if that helps, but it's a good question, Commissioner Macy. Commissioner Douglas.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. What he said, excuse me, Planning Commission was very taken with the environmental innovation. We think it's something that will bring prestige to our community and attention in a good way. One of the things that Mr. Arvin mentioned that we did give some thought to was the size, the scale of the building, because compared to what it's next to, it's very big. But if you look across the street, as the petitioner said, you've got the Michigan Bell building, you've got the very tall church building, you've got another multifamily building going in a block away that is 5 stories, 6
I think it's
stories,
5, yeah.
something like that. So I don't feel that this is inconsistent with what we do see in this area. I'll talk a little bit about multifamily zoning. Our multifamily zoning ordinance was written 20 plus years ago, and it has elements in it that are just not consistent with contemporary multifamily design. It has enormous setback requirements. Interestingly, there are places where you could put an office building lot line to lot line, and yet if you want to put an apartment building that looks just like it, you have to have 25-foot setbacks. So, and that's why they're here in front of us, because it's a planned unit development, which is the only way multifamily developers can, in most cases, address our built-up community. So I have less concern about the setbacks than the zoning suggests, and that I think we are going to see in the zoning that may result from the master plan. I do think the layout of this is consistent, again, with contemporary development practices and with what I think is coming for us in the future.
Commissioner Colo.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Correct me if I'm wrong, but my understanding is also that there was a change in the design from the first Planning Commission meeting to the second Planning Commission meeting, where they actually took some input of the neighborhood and did increase the setback. And it's not 25 feet, but they did increase it to that 6 feet, because I believe it originally went to the lot line, if I recall correctly. I see a nod from the petitioner. So it sounds like some feedback was incorporated already to move that in and try to accommodate the neighborhood.
And I believe the left turn only as well was accommodated as well.
Which, I'm happy to hear that they did take into consideration the feedback that was received and try to make some changes based upon that. I know at one point I would have been interested in seeing the building kind of flip around to put the long side along Troy Street, but I realized that is, this building's moving towards an energy efficient future, and the orientation is optimized by placing it this direction. So when we're looking, I look at the community benefits brochure that we put out, and this hits like all the check boxes. It's hitting the environmental checkbox, the workforce housing, the size of the units will lend themselves to being, while per square foot, the same as a high rent area. They're just smaller in general, so we'll be able to, it'll be more affordable in general, I would believe. So, yes, I would love to have larger setbacks, I believe, but in this case, I think that the good outweighs anything else in this, and I'd vote for it because of that, if we get that triangle.
Commissioner Chisholm?
I think I did share with you some of your concerns, because I think we are getting closer to some more traditional single-family housing nearby, and I think that we want to be thoughtful as a commission about transitions and things like that from downtown. But as I look around the map there, it is surrounded by multifamily housing. There are tall buildings, as you mentioned, and I do appreciate the way this is aligned with our sustainability plan and aging in place, and looking for more options for seniors to age within our community, and perhaps in ADA compliance spaces where they can maneuver around more easily than some of our houses. So I like the alignment. I do think that there are some trade-offs, and I do think that this is a precedent-setting project in a few different ways. So those are kind of the thoughts that I've been mulling over. So I didn't want you to feel completely isolated. I also thought about some of your concerns too.
Commissioner Hunt?
So don't feel isolated because I share your concerns. When I came in, I was on the fence for this project. I think I'm a little off the fence now, but still very close to it. This feels like a very like an oversized project for this space, and that is where my concern is. I love all of the environmental aspects of it, and of course the workforce housing, but I still have concerns about the size of it and I know the setbacks, the petitioners worked with or listened to the neighbors on that piece. But it still feels very close to the property line. So that's still just my concern on it. Still on the fence.
Commissioner Macy?
Okay, thanks for those not making me feel isolated. Well, that's all right. I've done it before.
Commissioner Island.
Commissioner Island. So just about the setbacks, I mean, so Commissioner Colo said that they added some, but according to the chart, this is kind of what I was trying to get at with Mr. Twing. Of the three, there are 3 sides that do not meet the 25-foot setback, and 2 of them are 0-foot setbacks still. Yes? Yeah, okay. And then, several people have mentioned sort of affordable housing and, the ADA-friendly housing. Have they talked about that, or are we just hopeful? Like, is that, the sustainability stuff is all in there, and I saw it all, but did we hear anything from them? We did?
Do you want to ask that question?
Yeah, maybe, yeah.
Yeah, I believe in the report, the affordable housing was mentioned there. We have 5 units that are going to be affordable workforce housing, and then all the units will be type B units with the 2% type A units, and we do have an elevator in the building as well.
Thank you.
Yep.
I guess I'm done with my questions.
Okay.
I still think I'm on the fence, but.
Remember, a few meetings ago, there was a pause and I jumped in. And I immediately had to jump out for my own personal safety. So I just want to make sure. Oh, was it Commissioner Douglas? Okay. All right. And then you chose to sit next to me? Uh-huh. Oh, boy. All right. Questions? I think, again, all good points. I think some of the setbacks, too, that we're talking about that are 0 are more to the west, more towards Troy Street. So, which is typical of the downtown, like being right near the sidewalk line. And then, where the residents are, there's, it's still closer than what would typically be zoned for multifamily, but, still, within reason given the dynamics in the area, I believe. And I think with the affordable workforce housing in there as well. And I would even say, not that it's a requirement, but with the EV charging stations, they lend themselves down the road for your residents to do car sharing. Because with EVs, we have a development in town that actually, I'll have to see if they're still doing it, but one of the things that they decided to do was put like a Chevy Bolt in there that residents could use. And what's great about EVs is that you don't have to worry about who's filling it up and everything if you're just making short trips. It becomes an amenity for the residents. It cuts down on, people's desire to have a car. If they can do Uber and Lyft, and then when they run short errands, have an EV parked in the garage. I think that is, and the reservation systems are easy. You can do it as a residential developer and property owner. So there's also an upside there as well. And, it's really just a summation of trade-offs. And I think one of the key things Commissioner Colo brought up, because I had a similar thought until they brought it up at planning, was the orientation of the building, the sun. One, to collect the light, and 2, using it, southern exposure is way different than eastern exposure. And so that matters when it comes to energy and how you heat and cool the buildings. So I think a lot of thought went into it, and I do agree it would be something to set precedent. I think one of the cool things that we've done in the community is the first soon-to-be LEED certified building on the corner of Main and 11. We worked hard with the developer to get that done, and I think it sends a message to all other developers that if you're going to come to Royal Oak, you need to have these community benefits in place. And I think with this one on the residential side, if it passes, would also send a very significant message that Royal Oak is, our community, we take our community benefits resolution seriously, and that if there's a will, there's a way. So I think these petitioners are in a way disrupting the development community. Probably should, make sure you double lock your cars, because some folks that like to come in and build and make lots of money and not make considerations to affordability or to the environment are on notice if this passes. So we do have a resolution in front of us, and I'll be supporting it. I just have to zoom in and make sure it's the same one. Okay. Yep. Commissioner Collo.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I move approval of the resolution before us with the amendment to add the 10-foot triangle on the northwest corner of the lot.
Okay. There's a motion by Commissioner Collo. Is there a second? Second by Commissioner Douglas. Discussion. Okay. With none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed?
No.
Okay. The motion passes. And so, Mr. Twing, so now we did have the additional of the triangle. We would expect this to...
Well, we'll work with them on making revisions based on your conditions. We'll get the development agreement drafted and signed based on that approval, working with them, and then we'll bring it back.
But the final site plan and everything?
Yes.
Okay. And
It'll be
TBD
the second
January
reading.
sometime?
Well, some of it will be predicated on how much time they take with it, but
okay,
certainly.
Good. All right. Thank you, Mr. Twing. Thank you, guys. Appreciate your time tonight. And you're not alone on Commissioner Island. All right, that brings us to item 10, which is the Planning Commission recommendation, conditional rezoning 600 East 11 Mile Road. First reading, Mr. Twing.
Again, you do have a recommendation from the Planning Commission. This one is slightly different than the prior, in that, as indicated, it is a conditional rezoning versus a planned unit development. The primary difference there is under the state statute. The developer is in a position to offer conditions, and the city's in the position of either accepting those or rejecting it in that fashion, rather than it being a negotiated item similar to the PUD. The petitioner has offered some items that I think that they can run through in their part of the presentation. But this is a rezoning request from neighborhood business to multifamily residential. The Planning Commission did consider it at 2 meetings, September 12th, 2023, and their November 14th, 2023 meeting. They had public hearing at both of those. It is a request to build 22 multifamily units with 34 parking spaces, approximately 1.5 per unit. It is a building that's approximately 47 feet in height. Again, the standard requirements and deviations are indicated on page 3. The Planning Commission did recommend approval of this request for your consideration. Again, their action is contained in the overview cover memo, and there is a suggested resolution if you wanted to move forward as recommended by the Planning Commission. Again, this is first reading. It would come back as a second reading with whatever changes or modifications that you can do as regards to the zoning ordinance. Again, it's not a negotiated item where things outside the zoning ordinance are dealt with. It would also include an agreement. In this case, it would be a conditional rezoning agreement for those of you that are new. So with that, I know the developer petitioners are here, if you would like to hear from them about their project.
Any questions for Mr. Twing before we hear from the petitioners? Commissioner Douglas.
Not necessarily a question, but page 1 of the staff report, excuse me, the report says the Planning Commission postponed action on the application and directed the petitioner to make various revisions. The commission did not direct the petitioner to make revisions because we can't, but we all did talk about the things that would make this development more desirable.
Well, and again, the qualification I want to make is you can address items that are specific ordinance requirements. So you can say if the density is too much, you can, because the ordinance has a density standard, you can address those. What you can't address in terms of additional conditions are what I will say that aren't specific ordinance requirements, the environmental guideline items that you adopted by resolution. Unless they offer them, it's not something you can add to the project as a condition. So in that case, they would have to voluntarily add that. But you can, if it's too dense a project, you can direct them to take it down from, and is what they did. They took some units out of it and brought it back with fewer units and things like that. So that's just a distinction I want to make.
Okay.
Did you want to hear?
Petitioner willing to make a presentation and take questions?
Sure, yeah.
All right, come on up.
Discussions are always great. Hello, everyone. I'm John Abro with Stonegate Property Group. So let me backtrack a little bit on this project. So I've been here for many months. Look at the Troy Street back in early this year in the wintertime. For that reason, I wanted to hear public comments, neighbors, the Planning Commission as well. When I presented this project back in September, we did propose a 27-unit, 27 parking spaces, very similar to the Troy Street, Troy development that we just heard a few minutes ago. So in that meeting there was concerns, conversations from the neighbors. Yes, there wasn't direct, there were suggestions from the board as well. So we took those items and we modified, so actually spent 2 months until we came back from the last meeting we had, and we brought the project down to from 27 units to 22 units, 27 spaces to 34. So we actually took that 1-to-1 ratio originally what we submitted for parking ratio on the units to actually a little over 1.5. Not only that, we actually met all the requirements with landscaping. Those items were actually important to some members, residents, even for this development as well. So, and we're here today. Again, I just want to discuss that wasn't just our first submittal. There was obviously there was a second meeting and discussions, and us hearing from the neighbors. I want to touch a little bit about, because I had the advantage of sitting here from the last project that was just presented on Troy Street. Regarding setbacks, yes, 25-foot setbacks are very difficult. Our site is actually on 11 Mile Road, so it's kind of the gateway before you get to kind of downtown Royal Oak. Many buildings nearby, to the west of me, to the east of me, they actually sit within either a foot or actually on the property line. So we're trying to kind of follow that design. But most importantly is that our building right now, I think, sits 50 feet from the residential neighbor to the south of us. Our proposed development will actually sit 80 feet. So we're stuck with the 25-foot setback requirement to 1 or 2 from certain directions, east and west. But that's also helping from the neighbor to the south of us, all the neighbors. And if that's not the case, and we're allowed to build up a 25-foot setback to the south. So I'm sure the neighbors would rather have 80-foot setback than the 25. In regards of, I heard comments regarding the 10-foot clearance, triangular clearance. We actually met all of our requirements from our last meeting. Again, we have other great design aspects such as Majority of, or actually all the units are going to be electric. Utilities, there's going to be no gas appliances, things like that. So again, these being single bedroom units, you might have 6 recessed lights. You're going to have electrical oven. You're going to have a microwave, things like that. So they don't produce a lot of either power, again, with today's standards of everything being really high efficiency. So we're really proud of that, present this to our project. And that is it for now, and then I'll take some questions.
Questions? Mr. Macy.
So your site does have the 10-foot vision clearance from coming out of the streets, or it doesn't?
It does, as well as not just outside the streets, it's actually, as well as just the building corner itself.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, they all.
Commissioner Colo.
Thank you. When you were putting this plan together, did you consider any solar on top of your roof, or did you consider any other upgrades along those?
We did. We proposed bioswale. So we took advantage of meeting the minimum percentage requirements for landscaping, and we took that just landscape products or vegetation that would be less required for water. So whatever water we're collecting from the site, either from a springtime from the snow that melts. I think we have 4 locations that we collect the water, and we'll actually go into the landscape area that we're proposing on our site.
Yeah, no, I saw that the bioswales are great, and those short-term incidents. And I'm sure you have the stormwater detention underneath the site. Also, you have catch basins in addition.
Nothing's proposed now, but obviously it's going to meet the requirements of city engineering. Correct.
Okay, but then as far as the solar, did you consider that at all?
Not for this project, no.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, I'll just add at planning being a testament to what occurred. I know when the project was first pitched, there was 27 units, and a lot of the neighbors came out and did express concerns, which is good. That's part of the deliberative process. That's what we hope to hear from people. And a lot of those elements were, from a neighborhood point of view off Phillips, were considered. And at the very, a couple months later at the next presentation, I don't think we had a singular neighbor come out to complain about the new design. I can't speak for every neighbor there, but that portends that they were satisfied with the changes that were made, notwithstanding even one person coming out. I think be careful not to benchmark this necessarily against the last project, because we kind of struggled a little bit, as well with that, because the last one is a different animal, a different concept, a different way of financing it, this in a different location. So this one, though, I do think for what's on site today is an improvement. It's certainly, when we look at where 11 Mile is going down the road, although there's not a specific plan for it, certainly I would choose every day of the week to have some denser housing options on 11 Mile, especially close to downtown, versus, car washes and things of that nature that are more, down the way that are for sale. And so I think that, and even with this building, it's pretty much, if I'm not mistaken, it's all blacktop there. It's all parking. The building, there's very little impermeable surface today on the property as well. So from a water mitigation, stormwater management, and I don't even know what the detention is. God knows what the detention is there, if there's any. The building's so old. So when we looked at it and we considered that planning, I won't say trade-offs. I'll just say it's, certainly it's a different model than what we just saw, but there are, some incremental improvements, and certainly tackling some of our other priorities, not just environmental sustainability, but, getting housing in the city for people that aren't or can't afford an $800,000 single-family home, or a $300,000 single-family home. But that's sort of my thoughts from planning. Commissioner Douglas.
I live right across the street from this property. My unit faces it. I look down at this property every day, and I would be so pleased to see it redeveloped into something as attractive as this, as opposed to what we see there now. The responsiveness of the developer was a delight. I mean, that is, he heard our ideas, and he came back and addressed every single one of them. And I mean, particularly as the previous example, the clearance on the corner, this is a really awkward intersection, and just watching traffic flow, you know, from my balcony, I can see the merits of that, and that was something that he willingly incorporated. You know, not everything, as the mayor says, is going to be, you know, sexy net zero building. This is a worthy development, providing needed housing at a scale that's very suitable for the location, and with features that I think are consistent with our values.
I was mistaken. There was one neighbor that presented her opinion at Planning Commission, but she wasn't sitting on that side of the table. She was sitting on this side of the table. Any other questions for the petitioner? Okay, thank you. We'll discuss it up here, and like the previous petitioner, if we have questions during our deliberation, we may call you up here to answer them. Thank you. All right. Awkward silence.
So,
Commissioner Douglas.
yeah, I'm just looking for the resolutions. And Mr. Twing, I think, can help me here. So you need a resolution to adopt it on first reading, and then further resolution directing staff to prepare a conditional rezoning agreement. That's the essence of the motion.
Yeah, the suggested resolution is on page 4. The following resolution is recommended.
Right.
Yeah,
So all of that.
all of that,
All of that. The city of Royal Oak ordains,
right.
and what's below. That's my.
That's your motion. Okay, all right. A motion by Commissioner Douglas. Is there a second? Second by Commissioner Herzog. All right. Discussion on the motion? Commissioner Colo.
Thank you. So I definitely agree that this is exponentially better than what sits there right now. And I will vote for this today. I do wish, though, that our community benefits package could somehow be incorporated into conditional site redevelopments. I do think a lot of good is coming out of this, but and not everything needs to be net zero. It's hard to do these on the same night because the other one took it to an extreme. There is public art. There's other type of items that can go. You know, I see big blank walls on this building that'd be beautiful for a mural. Community benefits are not just environmental. There's other benefits out there. So I like, as we're looking at the master plan and how we're looking at our zoning laws thereafter, I think that this is something to consider, how we incorporate community benefits package into how people seek waivers and variances. But that being said, this will be a great benefit to the community. This will be great for, you know, much better than what's there now, so I'll support it tonight.
Anybody else? I'm getting, you guys have to get used to me because there were different dynamics last time around, and, you know, now I have to like triple check to make sure. Okay. All right. With no further discussion, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Good luck.
Thank you.
This is in, I guess it's more in your neighborhood, but it's kind of in my neighborhood too. Yeah.
I think a couple comments.
No.
No?
Well, we'll allow the petitioner to do a couple comments.
You mentioned she lives across the street, and I think that eventually this will become more than 11 Mile, right? As you go from Main Street 11 Mile to her development where she lives, I think it's a beautiful development, onto the 600. I think we'll kind of have like that stitching cross, you know, you'll kind of keep going down 11 Mile Road. Hopefully, you know, you'll see nicer, bigger projects.
Yeah, it starts. You got to get the nucleus going.
Yes, perfect.
Perfect.
Okay,
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. That brings us to the last item on our agenda tonight, which is the approval of the interlocal agreement for mental health co-response team. This is a really exciting item, I would argue the highlight of tonight's agenda. And so I think we're going to start with Mr. Grochowski.
We've got a plan in place.
All right, we'll start with Mr. Grochowski.
Thank you, Mayor, Commissioners. Good evening. Tonight on the agenda for your consideration is a joint interlocal agreement between 4 municipalities: Royal Oak, Madison Heights, Ferndale, Hazel Park, and Oakland County Health Network. This is to implement a mental health clinicians to work in tandem with the 4 police departments. The proposal is for 2 mental health clinicians to be split among those 4 municipalities, and those 4 municipalities would split the overall costs for implementing that program. It's expected the first year is about $245,000. Split 4 ways, and then after that it's expected to be about $240,000 split 4 ways after that first year implementation cost. It's my understanding the other communities also have this on their agendas this evening for their consideration. I think one of them's tomorrow night, but the 2 others are tonight. I do have really good news that late last week Oakland County did approve funding for this first year for the entire amount. It still has to be approved by, and it's my understanding, Oakland County Health Network has it on their December agenda for approval as well, and then it will still have to go in front of Oakland County Corp Council. This agreement was reviewed by all 4 city attorneys involved in the interlocal agreement. And happy to present that to you. Provides a tremendous benefit and has been a tremendous help to the 3 communities that already have this in place and have utilized this program for the last couple of years. So we're asking that you consider moving forward, given the fact that it is fully funded now for the first year by Oakland County. There may be funding opportunities in the future, but part of the agreement would be that we commit to moving forward on an annual basis. This is a year-long contract, so we're only committed for a year. We are able to get out of the contract if so desired with, I think, 60 days or 90 days notice, so it's a short notice period if any of the municipalities decide to get out of it. But going forward, it would become a budgeted line item for the police department, which would be offset by any potential funding sources via grants or approved funding through the county or any other options they may have. So, and then the chief can answer any operational costs or add anything additional that I might have missed.
Thank you, Mayor and Commissioners. I've studied this quite a bit. There is a pilot program in place that has a partnership with Oakland County Health Network. It's Auburn Hills, Bloomfield Township, and Birmingham. So they've been in place for roughly 2 years now, and they seem to have a program that's really working. And what we see in law enforcement today is just the mental health calls for service have just escalated astronomically. And I think this is just one more benefit to us. A lot of times when people are in crisis, they call the police, and sometimes we're a temporary solution, and I think this gives us another layer, and having clinicians responding with us or doing follow-ups with those in crisis and their families, and it really bridges the gap and brings those resources much quicker to them as more of a permanent solution. So it's successful elsewhere. I'm excited that we're nearing bringing it here, and we've had initial discussions, the 4 community police departments, as far as what it'll look like operationally, and there's a lot of excitement behind it. So happy to take questions tonight.
Questions? Commissioner Hunt.
For Chief Moore, how would this work with the crisis intervention team? Will they work in conjunction with each other, or will they be 2 separate types of services?
They're separate programs, but I think they'll complement themselves wonderfully. Some of the communities where this is in place have a CIT program as well, and OCHN actually certifies our law enforcement officers in the program, so it's interwoven. So you'll see a lot of overlap between the 2, and you'll also see that intersection where substance use disorder also comes into play. So it's just one more added layer there that's really has OCHN involved.
Commissioner Macy.
First first of all, I want to thank the chief for bringing this to us. This is really exciting, and I'm so pleased and impressed that our police force is so forward-thinking and looking towards always the next frontier and how to serve our community to the best of its ability. This is really, really exciting, and as Commissioner Hunt said, the fact that we already have the crisis intervention, we've done all this de-escalation training, and it just goes to show that our police force is committed to being the absolute best around, and I'm so proud of that. So there's a question in here. The question comes around to, how do you see, maybe you haven't heard from those other communities that have done it, this working with calls to service? Like if a call comes in and then it seems like it's a mental health issue primarily, how do you see that playing out?
That's a difficult question, but I can kind of answer it in a couple different ways. First of all, OCHN has already begun gathering all of our statistics as far as historical calls for service that have a mental health component to it. So they try to find the sweet spot where it would make sense for the clinicians to be actually working days of the week, time of the day, things like that. So this model would allow, if a clinician is working, they can co-respond with us. So we can both go to the location, and if it's more of appropriate for the clinician and they're comfortable, we've seen it where the police actually leave the scene and they're left with the clinician, the person in crisis, their families, things like that. Another piece to this is the follow-up is tremendous. Our folks may go to calls when the co-responder is not available, and they are essentially assigned the case for follow-up, and they take it and run with it. And the police departments just love it because it lessens some of the workload that may not be law enforcement specific. So it just gives that follow-up piece as well.
Thank you. Commissioner Colo.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Actually, Commissioner Macy had asked my question, so I'll just add to the praise. Thank you for bringing this to us. I see Mr. Cowan is in the audience still as the chair of the OCHN. Thank you for helping this come along also, and particularly for the funding.
Thank you. This is just an important piece of the puzzle in mental health in Oakland County. When I first got on the board and learned about the program that was started with Auburn Hills, Bloomfield Township, and Birmingham, I could only think of my dad, and I come from a police family, and my dad always said there was two terrible situations. One was domestic violence situations, and the second was mental health, because police officers are traditionally trained in that area. And I want to wholeheartedly endorse what the chief just said. The benefit it provides to the community is once there's the interaction with the mental health clinician, that person can, and that family, because it's just not about a person, it's about a family having to suffer through a mental health crisis. They can then get into the network to get the help that they need. And that's the really important feature, is the ongoing help that can be given to the individual and the family to give them the tools to work with whatever that crisis is. So it will definitely be on our agenda. We had a committee of the whole meeting, which is kind of our pre-meeting next Tuesday. We'll approve it. I want to thank the Oakland County Board of Commissioners for stepping up with their funding. That is very important. But I can just tell you that the pilot project, we've learned so much, both for our side, on the mental health side. I think the police departments have learned a lot. But just to give you an example, in the first year this was done, our clinician was awarded the Citizen of the Year by the Bloomfield Township Police Department for not once but twice talking somebody out of a very serious suicide situation. So there's the benefit right off the bat, that you're going to have people, the police, as you know, from the ground rules are, as the chief knows, the police are in charge of the situation. They determine the situation. They obviously consult. Like I said, so much has been learned from the initial pilot program that now we can share with the other communities here in South Oakland County. So thank you very much. I'm glad, I can't tell you how pleased I am to be part of this and to see this moving forward and the impact, positive impact it's having on families and mental health. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Cowan. Commissioner Cheatham.
Chief Moore, I'm wondering, you said we have a one-year contract before us, some funding coming from Oakland County. Are there particular goals that you would like to see or benchmarks that you're looking to evaluate by the end of the year to determine whether this program will go forward. And also, let me just echo what has been said. I'm really pleased to see this come forward, and I do think that, mental health has been an issue for some time in our community, and COVID has only enhanced that. So I'm really pleased to see this, but I'm just kind of curious about, what are some of the things that you see as goals of this program?
Well, one thing that we would be really anxious to see is that a lot of times we will go to the same house time and time again, and sometimes we're just not able to offer some of the resources that a clinician may be able to do. So I think the repeated calls to the same person or the same family in crisis, I expect that to go down dramatically. And when you look at the pilot program that's in place north of here, they saw success with it right away, and really, you see law enforcement accepting the clinicians right away, and my team will see the value in it once they start to see that. But specific benchmarks, I don't really have those, but in dealing and working closely with OCHN, they are thrilled with the progress with those 3 communities, and we expect to see that here as well, just because the number of calls that we do go on involving a mental health component are continuing to rise. So.
Thank you. I was listening, but I also dumped my water on my new colleague here next to me, so I apologize for I was listening to your answer.
Things have gone downhill since you left the Senate, Commissioner.
This is the got it together side.
All right. Any other questions for Chief Moore, City Attorney Grochowski, Mr. Colo?
Mr. Mayor, I move approval of the contract.
We have motion by Commissioner Colo. Is there a second? Second by Commissioner Macy. All right, discussion.
Thanks, Chief.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, it's, and thank you to everybody that's part of this, and having an open mind, and really, I think, just echoing what everybody has said. Certainly it's going to have better outcomes. I feel for the families and the people suffering crisis, and for our police officers and EMTs that have to go to the same scenes over and over again because simply people can't find the avenues to get help. It seems like a no-brain answer. Like, how do you get people in the network? How do you, when people and families are in crisis, I suspect it's, another crisis just to get out of crisis. And so having that helping hand, that guardian angel there to, follow up and take it to the next level, make sure they're getting to their appointments, I think is going to have, even if it just affects one family, it's worth all the effort and all the budget. But I think it's going to help several families that, are enduring pain in the community. And we will see positive outcomes, and wholeheartedly just excited to support this. And along with the other communities that have adopted it, see where it can go more at a full county and full state level. So, all right, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed? Motion passes. All right. Good work tonight, crew. Yeah, I mean, with the exception of a rookie mistake of spilling water on your colleague, I think everything went pretty well.
Wait, here's how you know moms of young kids, they managed to spill without any extra napkins I wouldn't got. By the time I got back.
Always carry tissues.
All right, well, notwithstanding anything super important, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. Commissioner Macy moves to adjourn. Is there a second? Second by Commissioner Herzog. She can't wait to get out of here. She's all wet. All right. Well, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, motion passes. We're adjourned.